Hey there. As some of you know, I'm a big fan of the rock genre. And recently I've been listening to a lot of classic rock songs, and Cat People popped up into my playlist. Now, it being such a famous song, and I found this weird album art for the song of a lady with cat eyes, and I thought, oh, maybe it just has to do with the song, but it turns out it's a motion picture. It's a very big motion picture. And so my curiosity got the best of me, you know. Yeah, good thing it didn't kill me, because, you know, I'm not a cat. Oh god, that was so bad. But I decided to look into it, and it's not bad. Our story follows Natasha Kinski's character Irina Gallier as she reunites with her estranged brother Paul Gallier, who is played by Malcolm McDowell. We follow Irina as she falls in love with zoologist and zookeeper Oliver Yates. Yet her family's dark secret looms above her. And here I'll let Paul Gallier explain it, as he does it in such eloquent terms.
We are an incestuous race. We can only make love with our own. Otherwise we transform. And before we can become human again, we must kill.
As it turns out, the Gallier family's ancestors were sacrificed to black leopards or black panthers in order to, I guess, appease them in some way. And now they're essentially werecats. And now the story takes a turn and shows how Irina's newly acquainted friends deal with both her sexual and her primal awakening, as she leaves death and destruction in her wake. Film review! Now, Cat People is a film. Well, here is the IMDb page, right? You can't really see it, but Cat People is the name of two separate movies. The original from 1942 and the one which we're talking about, 1982. I watched the movie, and here we are. You know, in fact, I watched both.
You just have to say
Cat
that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Now let me bring up the IMDb page. Here it is. Now, Cat People is a fantasy horror thriller, as it is labeled on IMDb, from 1982, directed by Paul Schrader, and please forgive me if I get it wrong. Now, if that rings a bell to any of you film fans, it's because he wrote this.
Who the fuck do you think
He wrote Taxi Driver. He didn't direct it, but he wrote it. And I feel like his screenwriting prowess comes through here, but a lot of people would disagree with me on that. A lot of people feel like this is the worst movie he's ever done. In fact, some people point out that this was the point in his career where it just all went bad. Well, I would argue otherwise. I feel like the movie was really well written. And it tells a story that is modernized, updated, and is, you know, just better than the 1942 version, which is what I mentioned earlier. Now, a lot of people have given Paul Schrader crap and have compared his movie to the classic, the cult classic from 1942. This movie wasn't a commercial success, hence why I titled the video this way. And I feel like that was kind of a marketing mistake. And people didn't like it as much because they thought it was going to be a remake. Yet Paul Schrader did a completely different take to the story than what was in the original cult classic. And I feel like director Paul Schrader has done a good job of bringing out aspects of the old, you know, paying homage to the original film. yet keeping the story original and fresh. Albeit there are some references that you may not be able to get, or you might miss, or find confusing if you never watched the original movie, which I have. Now let's take a look at the cast. Now the movie stars Natasha Kinski, Malcolm McDowell, and John Hurd as Irina Gallier, Paul Gallier, and Oliver Yates, respectively. Now, these names might ring a bell because, well, Malcolm McDowell is very famous for A Clockwork Orange and his many other famous roles. Irina and Oliver are both characters from the original Cat People from 1942. However, they had the last names changed for different reasons. Now, Malcolm McDowell's character was never in the original movie, but I feel like he brought, a nice new dynamic to the movie, and it helped progress the plot, and it made it more interesting compared to the old movie. Now, I feel like the acting in this movie by the three main characters were all very good. Well, Malcolm McDowell, of course, he can walk through a movie and still give us like Academy Award levels of performance like that. But Natasha Kinski and John Hurd both provided a very important role, and their acting helped contribute to how effective this movie was and how believable the universe was. And I have to say, of course, me being from the era of more flashy CGI movies, the old black and white movie does seem kind of bland. However, I feel like it is a good story, it has like good narrative. But Paul Schrader's Cat People is more colorful. It tells a more vibrant story, and I feel like the world building is very nice. Albeit it's not complete, but it's just one movie. It's no cinematic universe. Now, the movie borders more on fantasy than horror, and that's why I kind of disagree with its rating as a horror thriller film. But then again, what makes a horror movie? Is it jump scares, the dread? Because I don't feel like this movie ticks all of the boxes for both horror movies or thrillers. But Cat People differs from other horror movies at the time. Those being slashers. It was a very big trend back then, and I feel like this broke away from the mold. And that may have contributed to why the movie wasn't as big of a success as it could have been, as it was labeled as a horror movie, but yet it did not feature any of the tropes of horror movies at the time. But I can see why they did do that. The movie features a very ample amount of nudity, a very healthy amount in ratio to the gore and the horror aspects of the movie, which that's good. 1982's Cat People has comparable elements to other body horror movies, such as I mentioned before, The Thing and The Fly. Well, I like how they both start with the. And in the 80s, America was still in the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and I feel like a lot of the body horror elements stem from the fact that they do not know who is who, and they're both playing a game of pretend. I'm a Russian spy, and I don't really know how to do impressions of Russian spies. And I feel like the questioning of one's self, one's ideology, could have affected the elements of horror at the time, and it's like they didn't know what they were or who they were, because of course Cat People was originally from 1942, and there was war. Yeah, there was war. And in the original story, Irina is from Serbia, if I remember correctly. Yes, she was from Serbia. I do not want to go too deep into the politics of movies, but I feel like the wars had something to do with the elements of horror and the nuances of the characters. Now, this movie was very famous for its sound, not only because of David Bowie's vocals. In fact, the movie starts off with David Bowie's vocals. In fact, this movie's music was so good, it was nominated for the Golden Globes for Best Original Score and Best Original Song. This video was brought to you from the love, support, and encouragement of my female companion. And I rate this film a 4.5 cats out of 6 people. Come back next month for probably another film review of excellent quality. Yeah.
You've been so long, and I've been putting out fire.
America was still in the Cold War, and I feel like a lot of this body horror stems from the fact that they do not know who is what or who is who. You know, they're both playing a game of who is who between America and Russia. Am I being retarded right now? No, I'm not retarded. Yeah, America was still in the Cold War with Russia or the Soviet Union. Fun fact: the Thing actually comes from the same production company as Cat People. They're both properties of RKO Pictures.